and sisters, we've all turned up the radio to hear Brother Jimmy Lakey, from coast to coast and shore to shore. Now raise your voice, oh little song, Jimmy Lakey, get out of bed, Jimmy Lakey, raise your voice, Jimmy Lakey, Lakey, hey, can't live without it with Jimmy Lakey, Jimmy Lakey.
Howdy, kids. How are you? Here we are. I pushed the wrong button twice and a little bit late this morning, but that's all right. Rank amateurs there. I don't know where they're at. Anyway, good to have all of you here. It's election day in America, or as they say in Chinatown, it's erection day in America. Is that a bad joke? I don't know if I can say that. All right, good to have all of you here. It's the 4th day of November, year of our Lord, 2025. Anybody remember where you were at this time last year? The fear, the trepidation, the anticipation you felt on the day that we were going to vote for Donald John Trump to be the president of the United States. Anybody remember that? It was a good day, fun day. I remember my buddy, producer Chad, another friend, came over for election night. We watched the results roll in and had celebratory cocktails. I had there was a bad crap crazy person. We'll talk about crazy Democrats that was in the building of the iHeart Kingdom that for some reason was very, let's say, threatening at times. And so I stayed away on election day and the day after just to avoid any exposure to someone who might have evil intent in their heart. And there seems to be a lot of these people out there. So anyway, it was election day. And then the following Friday, this Friday, will mark the 1-year anniversary of the day that I did the show and saw the bosses in the hallway. I said, well, I know what's coming next. And they came and said, hey, can we see you for a few minutes? And I said, okay, let's get it over with. And that was the day the lynching happened. So, hey, it's a big week in America. It's election day, and it's also the anniversary and commemoration of my heartfelt and hardworking service with the iHeart Kingdom for many, many years. All right. Glad to have you here. If you're new to the show, it's Lakey Unleashed. Yeah, unleashed from the confines of corporate radio and set free to give you the truth and nothing but the truth, at least as I see it. And it's true right here from behind this microphone, and you're in front of the speaker. So good to have you here on, again, Chinatown says Erection Day. So welcome to Erection Day in America. We're pleasured to have you here. All right. Good morning to everybody. Oh, by the way, I got a story here. I need to get this story out here. I need to leave the show quickly here in just a minute. I've got to go file a protest, a wage of protest. Something crazy has happened here in America. They have released the names of the sexiest man in America. And for some reason, my phone wasn't working to receive the call. I'm as shocked as you are, my friends. I really am just shocked by this, but I'm sure we're going to check the ringer on this thing here. The People magazine has said the sexiest man alive this year is, and I was waiting for the phone call, but they didn't name my name. They named some guy named Jonathan Bailey. He's been named People's Magazine's sexiest man alive. You might know him as the Lord Anthony of Bridgerton or Florero of the Wicked movies. He's also in the Jurassic World Rebirth, all crap that I'm not going to watch. Jimmy Fallon announced People's sexiest man alive last night on his show, and it is, again, Jonathan Bailey. Does anybody know who this Jonathan Bailey cat is? I don't even have a photo of him. I don't know who he is. Maybe producer Chad can find a Jonathan Bailey photo and see if it's sexier than yours truly, because I really anticipate every year receiving that call for the sexiest man alive, and unfortunately I don't. I think there's been a mistake in the balloting. I think we had some dangling Chads and hanging Chads, and that's not good. That's just not good. So anyway, I'll be working on that today. If you wonder what Lakey's going to be doing after the program, I'm going to be filing a protest and ask for a recount as to why this Jonathan, what's his name again? Jonathan Bailey. So nobody knows who the guy is. Did anybody hear when I said Jonathan Bailey's the sexiest man alive? Ain't nobody know who the guy is, do you? I don't know. Jonathan Bailey, sexiest man alive, and I would like a recount. Thank you, and you're welcome. That's what I can say. All right, Tom says, good morning from Madagascar. Tom, good morning to you, my friend. I appreciate you checking in. Good morning from Missouri. Good morning from Laramie. I see them all popping in. By the way, today is Laura Carno Day in the world, so Laura Carno is going to be with us, and also Niels Gravilius, famed private investigator, is going to be with us as well. And so everybody stay tuned for that. That's going to be exciting. It's Carno, Gravilius, and Lakey. It sounds like an overpriced law firm. and I like it. Carno, Gravilius, and Lakey. So Nils Gravilius, one of our favorites. Carno's one of our favorites, but Nils has not been on in a while. And then, of course, if you have a Carno fix that you need, because some of you do, Carno was absent last week because I had jury duty on Tuesday, and then she could not reschedule because she's very, very important. I'm going to ask Carno if I should have been the sexiest man alive. I always ask her a fun question. I don't know. Did she vote? I mean, somebody's got to vote for this and get me up in the ballot. I mean, I just can't. Jonathan Bailey, I don't know who he is. He was in the Wicked movies or something. I didn't see any Wicked movies, so I don't know. Got that story. I had to get that off my chest. All right, let's dive into some news. What do you say? Richard Cheney, Dick Cheney, passed away. You might remember him, a former vice president of the United States, became Gerald Ford's chief of staff, I think at the young age of like 34 years old. Got into politics early. He died of complications, his family announced, of pneumonia and a cardiovascular failure, which he was known to have heart issues. He was 84 years of age, and Dick Cheney served America well, and his legacy, I think, was overall strong. Obviously, a lot of the last memories we have is a war that ended up when he became the vice president of the United States in a 20-year battle and struggle that happened well beyond the George W. Bush years, and he was known as a war hawk, which sometimes we look back and go, what were we thinking? Maybe that was not the best policy, but a good man served America, and I think we all have to put aside differences and thoughts about that, and just when someone passes, they pass. It's kind of like when President Trump learned that Ruth Bader Ginsburg had passed away. He paused and said immediately, he said, I just heard that from you, the reporter, but she was a good person and lived a very good life. So may Dick Cheney rest in peace. We say a prayer for his family. He has two daughters. Of course, Liz Cheney is the most prominent. He has another daughter named Mary, and then his wife, an esteemed commentator back in those days of when he was serving, she was on the news with, and her name was Lynn Cheney. So Dick Cheney has passed away at the age of 84, and we bid. We pause and reflect. I interviewed Dick Cheney, I believe, once. I want to say twice, and I honestly don't remember the breadth or the depth of the interview. I remember when I interviewed George W. Bush when he was the governor of Texas, and I'm the guy that got everybody Dick Cheney. So I'll tell you that story because I remember that a little bit better than I do the Dick Cheney interview. I know I interviewed him, but I don't believe it was anything. It was either right around the election time. It was an election run in 2000. That would have been a year for the 2000 election. Is what that would have been. And so I think I had Cheney on when I was on this radio station KNUS in Denver doing Morning Drive, but I also had George W. on, and George W. was right around the time of the political conventions in 2000, and I'm just now cutting my teeth in talk radio. I'm 28 years old, 29 years old, and they say, you're in talk radio, and I'm like, well, the target demographic is 35 to 54, and I'm well below that, so let me see how I did, and I think I did okay. I made a career of it for a couple of decades in Colorado on the radio, but so George W. Bush came on the program, and I got him on the program because we pitched him that I was the son of Texas, and I had moved to Colorado, and I'd love to chat with him. Anyway, he came on the program, and there were a couple of memorable moments of when George W. Bush came on the program. Couple of memorable moments there that happened. One of those is that the news that night said that Dick Cheney, that George W. Bush was not taking the serious campaigning because he was out body surfing and in the water boating in Kennebunkport, Maine, at the family compound in the height of election season. He was taking a day off. And I remember hearing the world news that night say the only thing that George W. Bush has done that day is a one radio interview in Colorado. And I was like, say my name, say my name. They didn't say my name, but I was a guy that George W. Bush, I guess, fresh off the beach, covered in copper tone or whatever he was wearing, got on the phone and talked to me on the radio. So that was one thing. It was the only hit that he did all day. And that hit made national news, as they say, he's not being really serious. Well, George W. has not chosen his vice presidential candidate at the time. And he had not chosen it. And so we were talking and we were chit-chatting back. I think they gave me about 8 to 10 minutes for the interview. So we're zipping through some things. And W was a great guy to talk to, very folksy. But when you only have a limited amount of time, you're like, talk faster, talk faster, talk faster. And because you want to get some more questions in. And so at the end of the day, I said, okay, Mr. Governor, as who he was at the time, I said, Governor, here's a question for you. I know you have Everybody's anticipating who you're going to pick as your running mate for this election cycle. Would you like to give us any hints? Who are you looking at? And he says, "Oh no, I'm not going to do that." I said, "Well, if I could give my suggestion." He said, "Well, Jimmy, I have to tell you, if I can't. I thought about you, and I'm still considering you, and it was funny, but I wasn't even old enough. That's how young I was doing talk radio at the age of 28 or 29 years old." He said, "I thought about you, and then." Of course, I sound old. He didn't know what I look like, so he's like, "I can't hire this old guy. He's probably got a foot in the grave and another on a banana peel." I'm like, "Dude, I'm in my 20s. I'm doing talk radio in Denver." So I'm there, and I said, "Well, I have an idea for you. I want to give you a suggestion on the on the governor's on your selection for VP. You have a man that you have placed in charge who was the defense secretary for your father, chief of staff for Gerald Ford. His name is Dick Cheney." And he is running the search committee for your vice presidential selection. He's looking through all the candidates. He's doing the screening and the vetting. And I said, "I have a suggestion that I might offer you." And I said, "I would suggest that rather than him looking for other people, I would suggest that Dick Cheney would be your nominee as a VP. I think a Bush Cheney ticket would be very fantastic." And W laughed and chuckled. "Oh, Jimmy, of course, anything you say I listen to." As a fellow Texan, he made some nice comment and blew it off. And we said bid ourselves adieu. And that was the end of the interview with the governor, soon to be President George W. Bush. 24 to 48 hours later, George W. Bush, somewhere in that couple of days, announced that Dick Cheney was going to be his VP. And I said, "See, I am a kingmaker on the show." And you can see how that career worked out for me. So anyway, I did interview Dick Cheney. I don't remember much. Of course, the most comical stories where we all had fun with it, and this was back when you could make fun and have some humor, was when Dick Cheney was out hunting, and he ended up firing his firearm and hit somebody, and that was not a good thing. And of course, of recent years, he had a big falling out with the Trump. Donald Trump was very critical of the Bush Cheney years and the wars that they got us in. Of course, Liz Cheney became an arch rival when she was a Republican serving out of the state of Wyoming. And even in the past election a year ago, I guess I was told that Dick Cheney had said he would never vote for Donald Trump, and he was going to cast his vote last year for Kamala Harris. So, I say at this point, let bygones be bygones, and celebrate the things that were good about Dick Cheney. And I think he was loyal. I think he probably did his best. And if there's something that's out there and some people out in the conservative world think differently, I'll let the good Lord sort it out. As for me, I will choose to just say rest in peace, Dick Cheney. 84 years of age. Family has announced he has passed away. All right, it's election day in America, as I mentioned it, and be careful if you're going to the ballot box in New Jersey. They say there's nothing to fear, but there were some bomb threats that hit some of the polling places in this off-year election. And the government says it's nothing to see here. It's all okay. There's not a problem in New Jersey, so everything is safe. But people will try to squelch the vote and squash the turnout because everyone says that this is going to be a turnout election. It is very possible that New Jersey will elect a Republican governor and maybe a Republican attorney general. It's very possible, it's a little further stretch, that Virginia will elect a Republican governor. Winsome Sears, by the way, very nice lady. I've interviewed her a couple of times, right as she became the lieutenant governor of the state of Virginia, and she was a very, very kind lady. And I've been watching her on the campaign trail, and she has actually improved. Not that she was bad, but she's picked up her energy. I remember when I had her, because I'm a kind of, if you haven't figured out, kind of a high energy guy. I do remember that she was, I was like, "Come on, let's go. I'm drinking coffee. I've got to go. It's 7:30 in the morning. Let's go. I got coffee in me." And I don't think she had caffeine. And I was wondering, but she's done so much better. I've watched some of the debates and some of the highlights. So get out and vote wherever you're at. I cast my ballot. I live in as those of you listening across the nation, either on the streamcast or the podcast later, but by the end of the day, thousands of people will hear and or see this show, and we appreciate every one of you. I live in Colorado, for those of you who don't know, and we have pretty much all mail-in ballots. You can go to a mail-in ballot location, hand it in, and call it in-person voting, but not the traditional vote. We have all mail-in ballots in Colorado. And because I've been traveling so much, I've been so busy with just so many other things, I had kept forgetting to fill out my ballot. And so last night I made the effort to fill out my ballot, and I opened the ballot and said, what's on the ballot? Well, there's two basically strangely worded questions. Shall the legislature be able to keep your tax refund? And the answer to that is heck no. And then there was another one when it says, without raising taxes, can we do this? And I'm like, you're going to raise taxes. No, I just said no on both of those things, and I don't have to bore you with the ballot language. No on both of those. Those were easy. And then there was the school board races, and there were 4 different races in our school board, different districts, but they're all open districts, so you can just vote for them. And I said, I don't school board. I always say we can't skip the school board votes. 2 of them were unopposed. So they were uncontested. I looked them up. They were incumbents. And so I figured don't vote for them and let there be an undervote as a statement for whatever that's worth. Well, there were 2 contested races. And if you're struggling on a ballot initiative, I would encourage you to do what I did. I did some quick research. I like to say that I went down to the library in the basement of the House of Lakey and really did search, and we put the research team together and made Delilah. No, I didn't. I typed in a very detailed question in AI, and I said, give me a comparison chart between the 7 candidates in the 4 districts of the school district that I live in, and tell me who's conservative, who leans liberal, what is known about them, is anybody known as pro-teacher, anybody endorsed by the teachers union, anybody. I just went through the whole list of things, and 10 seconds later put out a chart, and I said, oh, look there. There's the 2 I vote for in the contested race, and that was it. I did that. So I'll be handing in my ballot, dropping off after the show. I'll be taking you by the ballot drop off and get my vote counted. But I do mean that. We oftentimes get incensed and outraged at everything that's happening in Washington, D.C. And it's easy to shake your fist at the screen and yell at Nancy Pelosi, or to yell at Chuck Schumer, or to the other side yell at Donald Trump. But there's a lot of battles that need to be fought, and things that are happening in your own backyard that you need to be aware of, and make sure that you do cast your ballot correctly and do cast it. I know school board seems kind of tiresome, but this is what happened. Conservatives and good people in America have skipped school board elections, and the protesting types that are always on the streets and seem to have time to protest and somehow keep a job, they have filled up school board seats. So make sure you vote, especially in those school board races, that even if you don't know, it's easy to get the information. I use Perplexity as my AI of choice. Some people use Gronk. I've been told I should switch to Gronk. I don't know. Some people use Chat GPT, of course, the most famous. But if you type the right question on a simple question like that, it can give you your own voter's guide. Don't skip those candidates that you don't think are all that great. You don't know anything about them, so you're not going to vote. Don't skip them. Very important for the sake of your children. All right, what do we have? It's Election Day in America. Dick Cheney has passed away. Speaking of candidates, there's something in the water, and I mentioned this earlier that last year around Election Day, I had to stay away, and I mentioned this earlier in the year, that there was a period of time at iHeart that I refused to go into the studio because I thought that there was just a lot of strange things happening with a certain person there that had some very vile views and had the TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome. The person had started off as a nice person, but suddenly, late at night, get a late night text, I hate you, I don't want to be. It was weird stuff, and I had to stay away from the building. But the kingdom, the iHeart Death Star, would not terminate the employee or take other action. And there were periods of time that I have to be in the building with that person pretty much one-on-one at the studio area. And I didn't like that. So I stayed away for months at a time. And I'd done my show for home for years, and I was trying to get back and help with the sales efforts because they were a new sales team, wanted to get to know me. So all that stuff, but I stayed away. And election week, I stayed away as well. And I did my show from my home studios because that was the safest thing for me to do. Well, these people have become more and more vile. And we often joke about the days of Ronald Wilson Reagan, that Ronald Wilson Reagan would go have a beer after work with Tip O'Neill. I don't know if that's true. That's the rumor on the street. But I think a lot of this vitriol and demonization and what we'd call dehumanization started happening when George W. Bush was president. Anybody remember Dick Cheney, who's just passed away? They wanted him as a war criminal. He should be tried at The Hague for crimes against humanity. The left today will probably, in the media, will tribute to Dick Cheney, and I think they should, but they'll celebrate him in a way that almost forgetting that for years that they called him a criminal and wanted him hung up at The Hague from a from the gallows. I mean, that's how bad they were. But the moment that Dick Cheney and his family kind of became anti-Trumpers, then the media started to glom onto him and love him. And that was what's interesting. But they dehumanized Dick Cheney to a very unsafe perspective and called him things. Again, you could disagree with the war policy, disagree with Afghanistan. After a while, I think a lot of us raised our eyebrows and said, maybe this wasn't a great thing. The whole weapons of mass destruction thing that Dick Cheney said they had evidence that there were weapons of mass destruction. Turns out there weren't any. At least they never found them. Some people said they never existed. Some people said they moved to Syria. Some people think that people in the military industrial complex had people that kind of faked some intelligence so that they could get the war machine going. And 20 years of war that waged in America, that all started under Dick Cheney. Well, during that time, there was language being used that was quite hateful. And these, the Code Pink ladies, I think, started coming up with George W. and Dick Cheney, and they hated these guys, and they despised him, and they dehumanized him. It was no longer a policy discussion about war. It was a hate-filled discussion. And again, maybe I'm just young and don't go that far back, but the dehumanization that I remember that Dick Cheney and George W. Bush had and experienced under the hands of the American left and the Democrats was awful. It was pitiful. It was pathetic. And it was to be absolutely should have been rebuked. Well, that same hatred and type of ramping up dehumanization amped up again once you had 2 years of Obama, and then all of a sudden Trump comes back, and the Democrats go back to that same playing card that they went after Dick Cheney with. He's an evil guy. He's a Nazi. He should be hung up with a Hague. All this stuff that they did. And so the playbook that these folks have is somehow filled with hatred and vitriol. Remember this this attorney general that's running for office, I believe in Virginia, that wished that children that he had met, he was familiar with the family, but he in a private text message said, I hope they die and they ought to kill the little Nazis they breeded as well. I mean, just vile things that this guy wants to be the chief law enforcement officer of the state of Virginia. Well, here's another story, my friends, and I'm telling you, I say this with love, that if you're part of the modern Democrat Party, I think you maybe need to get help, or possibly maybe you haven't become deranged, but your people in your party need to get help. Listen to this headline, and I'll read it to you as it is reported at Fox News. Here we go. Find the story on my screen. Freshman Senator Tim Sheehy of Montana was targeted with death threats and other extreme insults by a left-wing city commissioner candidate from Montana's capital of Helena, who called his office several weeks ago to leave her thoughts about the Republican senator over voicemail. The voicemail came in July, shortly after Senator Sheehy had voted with Republican colleagues to pass the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, a sweeping tax and spending package from Republicans that angered Democrats, including Helena City Commissioner candidate Haley McKnight. In the following passage, here's what they said. Hi, this is Haley McKnight. I'm a constituent in Helena, Montana. I just wanted you to know that you are the most insufferable kind of coward and thief. You just stripped away health care from 17 million Americans. I hope you're really proud of that. I hope that one day you get pancreatic cancer and it spreads throughout your body so fast they can't even treat you for it. That's the voicemail that a Democrat candidate in Helena, Montana. So this isn't just national people. These are people on the grassroots that are running for office filled with hate and vitriol. Let me read it again. Can you imagine calling anybody and saying this type of thing to them, let alone having it thought? I mean, the Bible says bring every thought into captivity, because sometimes you may have a radical thought, but you bring that thing into captivity. Haley McKnight evidently does not know how to do that. Let me read it again. She calls the U.S. Senator's office and says, hi, I'm a constituent in Helena. I want you to know that you're the most insufferable kind of coward and thief. You just stripped away 17 million health care for 17 million Americans, and I hope you're really proud of that. I hope that one day you get pancreatic cancer and it spreads throughout your body so fast they can't even treat you for it. And this person is now running as a city commissioner in Helena, and now the audio tape and the voicemail has come out and said, the anger didn't stop there. During the roughly 1 minute long voicemail, the phone logs reportedly show came in on July the 1st. McKnight also launches into insults about Sheehy's fertility and his children before warning the senator, don't meet me on the streets. Haley McKnight said, I hope you die like a street dog. One day you're going to live to regret this. I hope that your children never forgive you. I hope that you are infertile. I hope that you manage to never get a boner again. You are the worst piece of excrement, she says, that I have ever had the misfortune of looking at. God forbid that you ever meet me on the streets, because I will make you regret it. F you. I hope you die. Haley McKnight is the candidate in Helena, Montana. I don't know if you're up in Helena. I don't know who's watching in Montana, but you might want to spread the word. And this is just, again, sometimes we don't pay attention to the candidates locally, and we just kind of figure we're going to get mad at Washington, D.C., but you've got to pay attention. It's kind of like after the Charlie Kirk murder, all these teachers that you weren't really paying attention to, you thought an apple a day would just keep the doctor away and put it on the teacher's desk and make the teacher happy, and they were all innocuous little sunflowers in the sun, just helping out humanity, right? Now, some of these people that we have not paid attention to, from school teachers obsessed with teachers union rhetoric to candidates for city council like Haley McKnight in Montana, have suffered from the Trump derangement syndrome and have very nasty and, let's say, demonic thoughts going through their head, and they ain't even trying to stop them. It's unbelievable. So if you're in Montana, pay very close attention. And if you're a member and part of the Democrat Party, at some point is somebody in the National Democrat Party going to start purging these types of people and say, you're not welcome here. This type of rhetoric is not welcomed here. But unfortunately, they haven't learned a thing. They haven't learned the vitriol has consequence. And even Nancy Pelosi this week was talking about what a vile human that Donald John Trump was. So anyway, if you're voting in Montana, please pay attention. Haley McKnight, it's all on tape. It's all on audio. She left a voicemail at the U.S. Senator's office in Montana, because why? She had difference on policy. She had such difference on policy that she wished he's dead. She wished his kids were dead, wished he was infertile, wished he would get pancreatic, all because there was a policy difference, all because she didn't like the budget being passed. And this is just the nonsense that goes on in these people's head that's quite disgusting. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is election day in America. And again, we'll be ending the show in just a bit after we talk to Nils Gravilius and Laura Carno, because word on the street is People's Magazine Sexiest Man Alive was announced last night. And I didn't get the phone call, and they called some guy named Jonathan Bailey. Don't know what Jonathan Bailey looks like, but I'm guessing this election was rigged, and I have to say I'm going to contest, because every year, for some reason, my phone stops working on the day that People announces the Sexiest Man Alive. I don't know. Laura Carno. Maybe she knows something about a stolen election here. Laura Carno, welcome to the show.
Yeah, you were robbed for sure.
I was robbed. Thank you. Say it again.
So you were robbed. So here's what's really funny about that. So I saw the announcement on the news this morning. Well, I've never seen Bridgerton, the series that this Jonathan character's in. But yesterday we were over in our construction site, and our finish carpenter was saying that his wife loves that show, that they're kind of binge watching it, and she loves the show. Well, we see this guy on the TV this morning. We're like, he looks exactly like our finish carpenter. That's why she loves the show. Oh. Looks exactly like her husband. Not you, Jimmy. Does not look like Jimmy Lakey.
I'm thinking maybe this Jonathan Bailey guy, he ain't all that hot, and he's got a side gig working in construction because his Hollywood career is a little overbloated, overrated, and he's having to do some side gigs.
Potentially so. The other thing I noticed on the cover.
There he is.
He's holding a dog. And so I think if you're holding a cute dog, that makes you look extra cute.
Could you tell the difference between the two? Sorry.
Jimmy Lakey.
Gaddy, yes. I'm sorry. That's it. Okay, producer Chad has put him on the screen. Okay, yeah. So he's a little younger. His metabolism still works, and he's got a hairline. But wait, give it 20 years, Jack Wagon. It ain't going to work out for you.
Right.
And I also just have to say, what's up with that goatee? It's a little wide, isn't it? I think you should chisel that in. I mean, the guy could use some work, I'm thinking.
Well, it's because it's not a goatee; it's a beard.
Oh yeah, that's true. But it's still kind of it kind of grows out like a big O around his mouth.
So
It's like, yeah, he can't grow in here. Is what
you're
happened.
looking for reasons it wasn't you, and that's maybe your beard is just not wide enough. I
For
don't
years
know.
I had a goatee, and then I trimmed down the soul patch. I think if you ever get one of the Jimmy Lakey bobblehead originals, I think it still has a little soul patch, I think, on it, a little right there. Yeah, I think the beard's a little overdone there. I think he could go without it. I mean, what's he hiding if he's that pretty? Why is he hiding behind a beard?
Okay, here's the thing. When my husband left the corporate world and grew a beard for the first time in his life, year or two later, I come home from something and he's shaved clean. And I looked at him, I'm like, I don't even know who you are anymore. Grow that thing back.
Oh
So
no,
it's just, yeah.
too
I'm
itchy.
a,
If I go a couple of days, I mean, I'm like a kid. I don't have to shave every day, but I need to shave today. But if I ever try to get too long, like people do no shave November, I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. But I'm thinking like Abe Lincoln, you know why he had a beard. There was a lot to cover there, old honest Abe. But this guy, if he's the sexiest man alive, come on, let's do it. Let's see it.
yeah. I mean, I think that's a legit thought. Yeah. Well,
Thank you.
why don't I go talk to our Finnish carpenter next door, see if it's really him, and then I'll provide the information.
Laura Carno is going to be the sleuth here. That's great because we have Niels Gravilius, our favorite private investigator, coming up after you, and now you're on the. I mean, man, we are solving crime across America here.
Oh yeah, I'm on the hunt of the really important stories. Let's be clear.
All right, Laura Carno, it's election day in America, and it seems that not only do we have bad voting for sexiest man alive, but it seems like we got some bad voting going on. We've got Seattle, Minneapolis, and of course New York City are about to elect socialist or communist mayors. Give me your take. New Jersey's looking good for Republicans. There's some Republican races as well. Give me your thoughts. Are we about to go full commie in some of these cities and states?
Yeah, this is going to be really fascinating because the analysis is going to be about whoever wins, whoever loses. What does this bode for the future of on the left? Do the Democrats want to go more socialist, or do they reject it? On the right, are we okay with people who may or may not have been really embraced by Donald Trump? So it's going to be interesting. Let's take New York, for example. Just completely shocking conversations that I'm hearing among friends that I have that are in New York City are that Republicans are talking about, while they very much hate Andrew Cuomo and very much prefer Sliwa, there's no way that they're going to give their vote to Sliwa. They're going to hold their nose and vote for Cuomo. And I think that's always very interesting when you're looking at the lesser of two evils. But for people who adore freedom and the free market and maybe safety, for example, it looks like it's really not quite existential, but get moving in that direction of like, what do we want New York to be about? You watch those movies like Escape from New York, and you're like, what must have happened to New York to make it so bad? This is what's going to happen. So, but I think some of the things for folks to watch. Mondami is probably going to win, but what are the margins compared to the polls? And the same thing in Virginia and in New Jersey. The wins or the losses do the margins outperform the polls? Do the margins outperform Donald Trump's performance in those states? So, sometimes winning isn't just winning the election, but closing those margins and so forth. But I think you're right that these big cities that are embracing these very socialist, not just dipping your toe in socialism, very socialist, anti-police, anti-Christian, anti-Jew candidates is very shocking. And the term FAFO, F around and find out. I think there's going to be some dire consequences to those cities, and hopefully it only takes them one election cycle to reverse them.
Being the optimist that I usually am, kind of looking at it going, the fact that we're even talking about a close race in New Jersey for not just a governor, but attorney general, and the same thing for Virginia. I mean, when when Governor Youngkin won, that people thought that was a surprise that he won the governorship of Virginia. That was a very tough race, and he barely got in, and he served his term, and he's now done. What am I being optimistic or Pollyannish when I say the fact that we're even talking about we're in the fight here, in the game, is a big deal, and shows that maybe the Democrats should take that as a sign that maybe something's wrong with them. Is that just me being optimistic, or is there something to be said there?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always reason for hope and optimism. And you point out the Youngkin win, and we had education, we had gun rights when Youngkin was running. Those voters turned out in droves to elect him. The question is, what is that coalition for Winsome Earl Sears? Is it that same coalition, or does she have a different coalition? I love that all the Democrats who say we need more Black women in politics, we need more immigrants in politics. You're like, Exhibit A.
Yeah.
Nope, not her, not a conservative one.
Not her.
But, yeah, but that's showing a pretty big margin at this time. So who knows on that one? But there are also not everybody tells pollsters the truth. So that's a thing too. So it'll be interesting to watch. I'll be parked in front of national news with perhaps an adult beverage, watching the entertainment.
Now, as we know with the People magazine vote for Sexiest Man Alive, that ballots can be rigged and elections can be rigged. You sent me a post from X that some New York City ballots, they may have Madami's name on there twice. I think that happened with People magazine with Jonathan Bailey as well. Just throw that out there for consideration. Likely. But I'm thinking Mamdani it's kind of like who do you want to vote for? Mamdani's the only candidate on there. You're like, I guess I'm voting for that guy. What'd you send me?
Yeah. So, and I saw this on Twitter. I was up at dark 30, just, because I'm getting old and get up early. But I started seeing that people saying after the polls opened in New York, saying, hey, I had a really weird experience. They didn't ask for ID. There were, just different various things. And Mamdani was on there twice on the top line. So as the morning went on, then there were more people posting pictures from New York. And everybody's all retweeting them, so my feed was covered with them. So New York City ballots, apparently, instead of having a list in a column of all of the people, it's sort of like a two rows of people. So it goes across, and then it goes to the next row, and it goes across again. So in the top row, there's Mamdani, Democrat, and then a few lines over, but still on that same top row, is Mamdani with, I'd have to relook at it, but another political party. And so it's, I don't know, maybe he can beat himself maybe he can split the vote with himself and lose. I don't know what's going on there, but it's super suspicious.
That would be interesting if he has enlisted or allowed himself to be, let's say, the Communist Party. If the mainstream media is not really covering that, I mean, Fox or Newsmax will, that if he has enlisted himself, because you don't just get your name on a ballot in a different party without someone putting you on there. That'd be interesting to see. There's a process. Yeah. And it would be interesting to see if it has been unreported that he had registered in two different parties as the candidate or been selected. That's interesting.
Yeah. And how would a clerk and recorder's office not catch that? But certainly there's a chance that it's all bogus, or there were, 10 ballots that were mistaken and everybody just retweeted those 10 ballots, or one ballot that was mistaken. I don't know. But still, it does call into question how secure are those elections. So
yeah, that's going to be interesting to see. I know a lot of conservatives are saying don't vote for Sliwa, vote for Cuomo. And honestly, I hate to say it. I know we're supposed to care. I really don't give a rat's patootie. New York City went to hell in a handbasket long ago. Cuomo is not much better than he just didn't ever register for the other party, the Socialist Party. But I look at people, I kind of, all these politicians, Republican or Democrat, if you want to know who to vote for, how did they behave if they were in power during COVID? And Mario Cuomo was a tyrant. He was a dictator. He was insufferable. And I could never vote for the guy just simply on that. because I know that the moment that he was gifted a little bit more authority, he took as much authority as he could, and he took out his tyrannical orders on the people of New York. So I don't see much of a difference. If you want to send your vote to Cuomo, if you're in New York, God bless you. Be at peace, but understand that Cuomo ain't no choir boy and a champion of freedom. He's definitely not.
Right. And I don't know if you saw Donald Trump's endorsement of him. He said it's better to have a bad Democrat than a socialist or something like that. I'm like, that's kind of a backhanded compliment, you know?
All right, let's get to the other big topic. It's election day, but the government shutdown is ongoing. I know a couple of people affected by it. Producer Chad has a daughter that works at TSA. She hasn't received pay for now 2 different pay cycles. We have a friend that's in the fire and rescue division on a military base, and he's going to work every week without pay. I even had an Uber driver taking me back from the airport yesterday, and she seemed to be kind of a whiny lady. But I said, "Are you busy?" She goes, "Not busy at all because of the shutdown." I'm like, "Wait, no one's flying because of the shutdown? People aren't going to the airport, getting home, and people are just getting drunk at the bars and driving?" She was complaining that she had no business, and it was about half as full as it had been. And I said, "Well, maybe people just waiting for Thanksgiving. I don't know." But she was at the shutdowns causing my Uber business to fail. Give me your thoughts. First of all, do you think the Uber business at Denver is, maybe even Washington, D.C., yes, but in Denver, I'm guessing people are still Ubering?
Yeah, but here's the thing there, and this is the problem, is that the federal government touches so dang many companies that if you are a contractor that does business with the government, you're on hold too. And so I just like in the corporate world, when things are tight in the budget, they say, okay, let's hold off on travel for the next month. I can totally see that.
Okay, you sided with the Uber driver. She was kind of whiny. I don't know. She was whiny. I still gave her a little tip, but that was it. And she was
Good
also
job,
then
Jimmy.
complaining about the economy. The economy is crazy. It's a rough world out there. Weird times we're living in. She didn't come out and say it, but I'm like, yeah, you probably sometimes, if you don't live in your mom's basement, you probably should. It was one of those things. But at least this is the first time I'd had a driver in a while in Denver that actually spoke English. I've had some scary rides, so there's a whole thing. Let's talk about this government shutdown. Do you think the Dems are going to get their hearts and heads right on this thing? I mean, it seems as if we're at a logjam here. Ain't nobody giving any ground. Who's going to blink first?
Yeah. So the federal government employees unions, the unions in Las Vegas, the whole bunch of unions are not all of a sudden, are becoming more and more ticked off because this is lowering their business. It's if you're a federal government union and you are not able to advocate for the paychecks of your members, you're going to be out of business soon. So there's a lot of pressure coming from unions. Is that what ultimately tips the scale? I'm not sure, but I think it has a really good chance. The kind of the bigger thing, Jimmy, that I think is very interesting, and I've seen a bunch of memes to the idea of a federal government big enough to feed you can also take away your food, kind of thing, on these SNAP benefits. And my sincere hope is that it really, especially with the length of the shutdown, causes people to say, hang on a second, this thing's in the federal government. Why is this subject to federal government shutdowns over and over? And I just think, gosh, Jimmy, I think people need civics lessons across the country. Not just with this stuff, but the people who are going to vote for Mamdani, or people who are going to vote for that guy that was saying that guy's children should die, and take some civics lessons. These are people who are supposed to be doing things on your behalf. It is a representative government. What are you thinking electing these people?
I think that's interesting as we wrap up here. The Niels Gravilius is coming up. By the way, I don't know if you heard me. It's Carno, Gravilius, and Lakey, and I'm thinking that sounds like an overpriced law firm. I like it. It could be exciting. Yeah. All right,
but I'm clearly the senior partner.
That's why I put you right up front, because I knew you'd give me hell if I didn't. It's like, hey, why are you over?
No, producer Chad put it in alphabetical order as it should be.
No, Carno, Gravilius, and Lakey. I'm just proud of my humility there that I took the last spot there in the law firm. You're
You
welcome.
you are nothing if not humble, Jimmy Lakey.
I'm very proud of how humble I am some days. Very, very proud of it. Thus, the sexiest man alive comment I made earlier. It's fascinating, though, these numbers, and I got to run here. But what is it? 6 in 10 Americans or 6 in 10 families find themselves touched by these SNAP benefits. I may be a little bit wrong on that. We need to wake up in that should be troublesome to everybody. Is why are we living in a world? If we have let's say that number's right, 60% of Americans or families that need government assistance, then we need to rethink some things here in America and figure that out. Or we have a fraudulent system where it's too easy to. I don't know the answer, but the numbers should be shocking. Unfortunately, I think people are just in their battle trenches for red team, blue team, and practical answers oftentimes are not forthcoming. I saw the meme, and I'll let you comment on this as we wrap up this topic. The same people a couple of weeks ago were saying no kings are now just saying I need my SNAP benefits. They went from no kings to I need a sugar daddy.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Where's my king with my food?
Yeah, that's it. Niels Gravilius is in the green room chanting, "He'll be your sugar daddy." That's what he's chanting. He's ready to go.
Yes, and this is my introduction to Neil Gravilius, my law partner. Clearly.
Your law partner,
Mm-hmm.
And all of us are practicing law, I think, without a license, but don't tell. Don't tell.
But we did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last.
Did stay at a Holiday Inn Express, and if we would just support some Democrat leftist causes, we can probably get by with breaking the law like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Laura Carter, it has been a pleasure. Let me know how your sleuthing goes regarding this Jonathan Bailey guy that's working at your house as a Finnish carpenter. That sounds like a Hallmark movie. I was talking to my Finnish carpenter on the construction site, and
except I'm married, and that never happens in the Hallmark movie.
I'd never watched one. It doesn't happen. There's no tawdry affairs in Hallmark movies.
No, they're single people, Jimmy. Aunt Patty watches them all the time. I've seen. There's one plot.
I'll ask Niels. Let me bring Niels in. Niels Gravilius, private investigator extraordinaire. Niels Gravilius, how are you, sir?
I don't think I've ever enjoyed a nicer day. Now, you need to tell the managing partner of this broken down law firm that she has to surrender the stage to Niels Gravilius right now.
Can you speak to a senior partner like that? What are you thinking?
I don't have the right button to exit the stage. Jimmy has to use the hook.
I'm going to eject her now, but let me ask you, Niels. She's watching the Hallmark movies. I'm guessing you and I would probably never watch a Hallmark movie. Have you ever? You can confess here. It's safe.
Torture. There are conventions in the United Nations against torture, I will say. Hallmark movies, I mean, I guess it's mayonnaise for the eyes. What am I supposed to say?
Okay. Say goodbye to our senior law partner, Laura Carno. It's a pleasure. We miss you already.
Bye, guys.
The Finishing Carpenter. I don't know what a finishing carpenter is. It's like the final song at a concert, right? The Finishing Carpenters. Never mind. All right. Niels Gravilius, how are you, sir?
I'm okay. A Finnish carpenter is the guy who does the fine work as opposed to a frame carpenter. And I don't know if you've ever been on a construction site. The Finnish carpenter thinks of himself as a fine craftsman, and the framing carpenter is just some guy swinging a 24-ounce framing hammer and drinking beer.
Okay.
So
I get it. Okay, I do know what a Finnish carpenter is. It was out of context, I guess. I wasn't thinking, but yes, I do know. All right, I need you, before we get to some real stories, I need you to investigate a crime, Nils.
Which one have I committed now?
No, not yours. We're not yours. We're going to keep your secret. People magazine announced the sexiest man alive is Jonathan Bailey from the Wicked series or the Bridgerton series. And nobody knows who Jonathan Bailey is. And I think they meant to call Jimmy Lakey. They called Jonathan Bailey. I think it's a rigged election. Can you investigate this into the sexiest man alive at People magazine?
Well, I've got bad news for you, Lakey. They've already sent me the mink jockstrap. They're replacing Bailey with Niels Gravilius. You're just out of luck, Lakey. I'm going to have women lined up around my zip code waiting for a moment with me. Just kidding. I'm in no danger of any woman flinging herself at me right now.
I don't know. A mink jockstrap. That gets him every time I hear. I heard.
Well, I mean, my long, illustrious career at Chippendales and the 11 years that I was John Holmes' stunt double in the film industry, what can I say?
You worked at I knew you from a previous life. Chippendale dancer. Wow, you and me both. I didn't know.
Right. I still have some $1 bills stuck to my underwear somewhere. Go ahead.
Yeah. I hate it when I go somewhere shopping. They say, "Why is there glitter all over your dollar bills?" I'm like, "Don't ask." You don't want to know why we have the old glitter here. All right, Niels, we got a couple of crimes I want to have you comment on in the world. First of all, I saw this story, and I know you were commenting on it. I didn't get a chance to have you on. Fentanyl is a real problem. And we oftentimes think of fentanyl, some people call it overdose. A lot of times it's just poisoning. People weren't even trying to take it. But the amount, you think of maybe a youngster that picked up an unmarked, my friend gave me an Adderall or something, and it ended up having some fentanyl in it. The senior citizens in America are dying from fentanyl. The overdose or poisoning of fentanyl is really a big deal right now.
Well, a 9,000% increase, if you must know, Mr. Lakey, in senior citizen deaths attributable to fentanyl. And I've had 3 cases of this in the last 13 months, and it has involved caregivers dosing the elder with fentanyl. Usually, in at least a couple of these cases, the elder was prescribed narcotics because they were under palliative or hospice care, and the caregiver is a drug user. So the caregiver wants to hand off his risk management problem to the elder that he or she is caring for. So the elder winds up getting dosed with street dope, and the caregiver gets to enjoy the safety of pharmaceutical narcotics.
Wow.
That's
You've had 3 of these in the last couple of months?
3 of these in the last year. Yes, sir.
Wow. And give us a comparison. Was this kind of an unheard of trend before, once in a blue moon type thing? I mean, a 9,000% increase, kind of give a comparison.
Caregivers have been stealing narcotics and tranquilizers and things like that from their patients forever. We have a problem with drug addiction in our healthcare community. And when it comes to home healthcare aides, many of them aren't screened for a drug problem, criminal justice problem, that kind of thing. Many of them come from foreign countries where they're running away from the drug problem they had in another country. So that's how we wind up with that. Fentanyl sharpens our focus because the difference between having a good time on a narcotics high, if that's your thing, and dying of a fatal overdose is measured in micromilligrams.
Wow. Yeah, the size of literally a sand grain is can be deadly. Niels Gravilius is my guest. If you're listening later on the podcast version, thousands of earballs will hear this show later. Niels Gravilius will talk about his private investigation services and a new book he has coming out. Literally, we're a month away from that launching here soon. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Niels, I was reading also some cold cases, and I know you've been commenting on these as well. Obviously, one of the most famous cold cases in America is probably the cold case of JonBenet Ramsey just up the street in Boulder, Colorado. But there's 27 years ago, there was an American college graduate who disappeared from her family's tropical vacation. And suddenly, out of nowhere, it seems like there's some new leads on what happened in 1998 when Amy Bradley was her name, 23-year-old, was on a cruise with her family, I believe. Talk about cold cases. How do these new leads come up? And if you know anything about the Amy Bradley case.
Well, I'm going to express an unpopular opinion, Mr. Lakey. It is my belief that she likely took her own life. And when they say they have new leads, it's garbage. You know, they've got some sort of thing where they believe somebody in the Caribbean is clicking on a link on the internet claiming to have information about her or something like that. I believe that she was not smuggled off the boat. I believe she was not human trafficked. I believe that the Bradley family has been abused by various people, including a guy who called himself a Green Beret, who took $250,000 from them, claiming he could rescue her from sex traffickers, that sort of thing.
Wow.
She had a little bit of conflict, not a huge conflict, with her family over having expressed her orientation to them. In other words, coming out as a lesbian with her family. But she didn't leave a suicide note if, in fact, she did take her own life. And
Yeah.
that creates ambiguity. And ambiguity is something that a lot of people have difficulty dealing with. In fact, the ability to deal with ambiguity under stress is the rarest human emotional quality that there is.
So you immediately say you've looked at the case from the perspective you looked at it. You're like, I think this is what happened. And now 27 years later, you have law enforcement coming out. No, we've got 3 hot leads. We're in hot pursuit. How do you end up? How does it happen that these guys think they have 3 hot leads, and you think it's probably settled here? What happens that catches these people's attention on these hot leads, and it sounds like they've had hot leads before?
Modern policing, 90% of it involves public relations, Mr. Lakey. I learned this lesson a long time ago. There was an LAPD detective named John St. John, Jigsaw John. And every few years, Jigsaw John would announce to the news media that he was working new leads in the Black Dahlia case, Elizabeth Short, found dismembered and exsanguinated in a yard in Los Angeles in 1947 or 48. And right up until the day that he retired from LAPD in, I think, 91 or 92, St. John would announce he was working new leads. And the LA Times would buy him drinks at the Redwood Room and ask him what the leads were. And he would talk about some guy coming out of prison who heard something from a guy who was getting paroled and that kind of thing. And it was just garbage in and garbage out. Like the John Benet Ramsey case. The police officers who worked that case have a very good idea who committed the crime, but because of the way the crime scene was handled, they can never bring a case against that person. Period.
The voice again of Niels Gravilius will give you his website here in just a moment. Speaking of cold cases, I got one more that's come across and says, ask Niels about this one. I believe this one dates back to 2019, so not as far back as the previous one, but a man murdered his wife, 3 kids, and then slept with the bodies for weeks. Explain this story about, I think his name was Anthony Todd.
Okay, so Anthony Tod, which means death in German.
Oh, great.
Slaughtered his entire family and lived among the remains, which is pretty macabre. So why does a man do that? The only possible explanation is psychosis. When he was contacted by law enforcement and asked who had committed the murders, he attributed the murders to his wife, who was her remains were in the bed with him. His wife he was sleeping with his dead wife. So 2 of his children were mummified in their rooms. He had murdered them too. Now, when psychosis overtakes a man who was otherwise normal at the age that he is, I think he's 50 now, 48, whatever. It's now when that occurs, when a man becomes psychotic, paranoid schizophrenic in this case, at that age, I want to ask, was this man using high concentrate THC, whether vape or green cannabis or something like that? Because I'm seeing more and more cannabis psychosis cases like this, where they perceive a problem, they perceive a threat, they act in a way that is violent and irrational to us, but in their psychotic mind, it makes perfect sense to them.
We've talked about school shooters for years. Of course, Columbine happened in Colorado. We've had several school shootings here. And the talk was always about maybe what big pharmaceutical hyperactivity drugs they might have been taking. And now you're saying that in some states legalized, we have introduced another, I guess, poison pill, if you will, that could cause some very nefarious behavior.
Yes, well, anybody with a family history of paranoid schizophrenia is vulnerable to this. Now, obviously, there are some men and women, Mr. Lakey, who can use cannabis with impunity. They don't go over into psychosis. I don't want to mess around with the stuff, and I wouldn't suggest you did. Some people will say, oh, well, are you calling for a ban on cannabis? I am not. It can't be banned. We tried for decades and decades. I think, though, that our government can launch a monumental psyop against the use of cannabis, like they did tobacco. They reduced tobacco use from 47% of the adult populace in 1988 to about 11% today. with a psyop where they made tobacco use look destructive and antisocial and useless and things like that. They could do the same thing with cannabis. And those who absolutely have to have it, who claim that they have a medical need or whatever, can continue smoking cannabis. We should be clamping down really hard on the people who try to import it. Despite the fact that high-grade cannabis is grown all over the United States, the cartels still try to smuggle illegal cannabis into this country. Many of the people running legalized cannabis operations are just fronting for organized crime. They're the clean name on the license. And it's like a casino where there's a bunch of gangsters behind the clean name on the license.
Wow. Again, the voice of Niels Gravili is talking about his website and his forthcoming book in just a moment. Niels, I'm always fascinated at how your brain works. And that's a compliment, by the way. It's not like a therapist. But I have to ask you, this Tote guy, he was age 50, murdered his wife, Megan, 42. Their children were 13, 11, and Zoe was 4. But this was in December 2019. What is it that catches your attention about this? Why does this pop up on the radar screen? And I get a note that says, ask Niels about this. What is it about this case in 2019 that has caught your attention?
Well, the fact that he was living among the remains of his family and they had to do a welfare check. You know, he was a very successful man with no prior history of problems, of psychosis, of violence, of irrational violence, any of that. And suddenly he murders his entire family. And it isn't like he cashed in all of the money and fled to Brazil and called himself Jimmy Lakey in order to avoid detection. He sat there among the remains, living out what was left of his life, etc., among the remains of the family that he has killed. That is bizarre. And it can only be attributed to psychosis, Mr. Lakey.
Final quick question for you. I know you're going to run, but I this is not a weird segue. I think it's a proper segue. You've talked about THC and you've seen the amplification of some psychotic behavior. We've talked about some of the school shootings and pharmaceutical drugs. There's been allegations of that. I'm getting a little bit worried about something that's happened in our culture. Maybe it's THC, in which you have a candidate for governor or attorney general in Virginia that wishes that their children died as well. I just read the story of a lady who left a voicemail. She's now running for county commissioner or city commissioner in Montana, but she left a voicemail a couple of months ago on a guy's U.S. Senator Tim Sheehy's voicemail saying, I hope you get pancreatic cancer. I hope it spreads so fast doctors can't treat your body. I hope your children die. I hope you are infertile the rest of your life. I mean, it's a long voicemail. It's in her own voice. When it comes to political violence and political animosity, is there a triggering factor? I mean, can we blame this on media? Can we blame this on THC? We got a real problem that this seems to be popping up more and more in these violent threats.
Okay, so her threat is based in reality, isn't it? You know, her wish that he die and, you know, this and that. That's based in reality. That's not like based on psychosis. People get an endorphin rush when they act out aggressively on social media, and social media drives a little bit of this. The social media doesn't create it as much as it reinforces it, and it reveals who the inner person is. You've probably seen several postings on social media where people will say, I bet you wouldn't say that in real life. So people say things on social media in real life that they wouldn't say in real life. And then later on, it translates into a threat that they make over a telephone call or a text or something like that. It is disordered behavior. It's antisocial behavior. And if they get rewarded for it enough times, they could become psychopaths, Mr. Lakey. You know, psychopath, they are created through random reward for antisocial acts.
So we got to, this is why I think we just got to, people have to tone the thing down, and you can disagree on policy, but this personalization, I thought Dick Cheney passed away overnight. We talked about that. I mean, they were thinking this guy ought to be hung up by the gallows at The Hague. I mean, you disagree with his policy. It doesn't mean he deserves a death penalty.
Well, yeah, that's what they were saying 15 years ago, Mr. Lakey. They were saying they were going to put him in jail.
Yeah.
Eric Holder was supposed to be investigating him, and as of a couple of years ago, his daughter is a holy saint, and suddenly Dick Cheney is the voice of credibility when he's
Yeah.
endorsing Comrade Kamala for president. Okay, so they hated him yesterday, love him today.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dick Cheney, I don't know, Darth Vader,
Yeah.
Darth Vader, anyone?
Yeah. GreviliusPI.com. That's his private investigator. That's not the law firm. We'll talk about the law firm another time. This is GreviliusPI.com. You've got a book coming out June, I think. It's not far away. We're months. The countdown's getting closer. Talk about the new book.
The Last Lawman. It is my true-to-life memoir of 30 years running and gunning on the streets of Los Angeles as a private detective in the Pinkerton service and my time in the United States Army before that, Mr. Lakey. I can't wait to introduce it to your audience.
GreviliusPI.com. Nils, I appreciate you hopping on. Welcome to the firm. We appreciate it. We'll have a welcome reception because we're all join the welcome of the firm together.
Thank you, Jimmy. You stay safe out there practicing law with your law partner.
I will, and you have to stay safe with that pink jockstrap. Mink jockstrap. Yeah. Nils Grevilius, GreviliusPI.com. Pink, mink, all the same. All right, good to have all of you here on the program. Fascinating look at some of those stories. Sleeping with dead people, that's weird, obviously, and that ain't normal. I still want to make sure, I can't wait to have Nils back on where he can tell me about the stolen election that happened with People magazine, Jonathan Bailey being named the sexiest man alive. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I've got a couple of stories I have not gotten to today because we had such great guests. The headline tomorrow I'll dive into: the average parent fields how many questions per day from your small children? Go back to the days of parenting, or maybe you're still parenting. If you're a parent, you're probably recognizing your child asks you a lot of questions. Why is the sky blue? Why is the car going here? They ask questions. They've done the average, and how many questions a parent fields every day from their children. We have that one. I also have a story I need to dispel the rumor that this was not producer Chad that I'm aware of. Some people still smoke cigars like producer Chad and I, and some banks still use those, what they call the pneumatic tubes that suck that little tube up into the through the drive-through into the teller window, right? Well, a man in New York, in southwestern part of the state, was arrested. He placed a lit cigar in the drive-through money tube at the bank. He did it intentionally, but it was unclear why he did it. So we don't know if he did it out of anger or just to be a jerk, but as a tip, you should not do that. The man was 33 years old. His name was Jacob Frank. It was not producer Chad. I did the investigation. Producer Chad was not in New York at the time. And that's not an alias that producer Chad has ever used. He was charged with assault in the third degree, reckless endangerment in the second degree, both Class A misdemeanors. The same guy was arrested for stealing a coffee machine key from a convenience store in August. The bank employee who inhaled the cigar smoke when it arrived inside the bank required medical care. The injuries were not life-threatening. Okay, don't put your cigar in the pneumatic tube at the bank. That's a bad idea. You're going to get you arrested. But maybe the person's asthmatic. I don't know, but had to have medical care from inhaling the cigar smoke. Just throw that cigar in some water. It'll all be good. But anyway, that was not producer Chad. Wanted to dispel the rumors around there. All right, tomorrow I'll also have the story about a new Oreo cookie flavor. I hate it when they screw up Oreos. That's one of my favorite cookies. Ready for this? Oreo is selling Thanksgiving cookies, and we'll talk about it tomorrow, that will taste like turkey and stuffing. That sounds absolutely horrific, but I'll probably try one if I could get one. All right, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasure. It's time to do the meme roulette portion of the program. It's election day. Don't go out, and don't forget to go out and vote. Get your ballot in. Before we do the meme roulette, I want to remind you about Sherry Cree, homeswithsherry.com. homeswithsherry.com. I know you're starting to slide into that Thanksgiving turkey dressing menu. My buddy yesterday showed me a photo. His family's going out of town for Thanksgiving, so his wife and him put up all the decorations in the house for Christmas. They're in the Christmas spirit, and that's cool. I don't get in the holiday spirit. I know we kind of start to wind down at the end of the year, but listen, if you're thinking of next year, even, and if you've got to sell a house right now, Sherry's your person. But if you thinking about next year, now is the time to actually have that conversation, because there's a window of opportunity that comes depending on the area you're in, depending on the neighborhood you come in. A lot of people think, well, I'm going to list it about the time kids get out of school. Did you know you've already missed the first wave of opportunity? it happens in early to mid-February. And if you want to hit the market as quickly as possible and kind of know what the market trends are looking like, these interest rates have come down, you need to kind of get a game plan. Is February or March when you want to list? Maybe you want to wait till May or June. Sherry can walk you through the differences in the offers you'll get or the difference in the price you can ask, etc. She will walk you through the whole process because it will be different. Homeswithsherry.com. If you need a 2026 real estate strategy, you got to reach out to Sherry and talk with her about that. Talk with her, just, hey, these are my visions, these are my goals, and she can let you know, hey, if you, I know you want to wait till May, but if you can get on this March, April window, and then there's ways to maybe you stay in the house, and there's options to do it. Get the best price, get the best situation. Sherry looks at it from every angle, dots every I, crosses every T. She's a fantastic person. Again, if you're military, you're a veteran, she'll cut her commissions down for you to make it more affordable. She'll also, for every person out there, anytime she does a transaction with you, she will take a portion of her commission out of her pocket, and she will donate it to the charity of your choice. Again, if you're thinking about 2026 and say, I'll deal with it when I get there, now's the time before it gets really chaotic to just have some of those prelim conversations and start looking at the calendar, and Sherry can tell you the difference between buying or selling a home in February versus March versus April, February versus May. What's the difference? It could mean thousands of dollars in your pocket or not in your pocket if you go on to market at the wrong time, or maybe you're going to get a better deal as a buyer by starting to look in February or May. Figure it out. It's based on a lot of localization, and Sherry can walk you through that. Homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. Make sure you mention Jimmy Lakey. All right, we got to go, and tomorrow we'll talk a little bit about the charity. Also going to talk about my new cigar award that I'm giving out to people, and we talked about Henry's Cigar Bar in Mansfield yesterday, Henry Cigar Lounge, Mansfield, Texas. I've got some other nominations that are coming in. If you'd like to nominate a favorite cigar lounge, a cigar bar, cigar steakhouse, different categories. I'm still developing the contest, but this is going to be as powerful as a Michelin rating if you get a Lakey rating. I'm working on it. So make your nominations to info@jimmylakey.com. Here we go. We go around the globe. We'll end up in China. We'll go to the ends of the earth and see what we can find on the intergoogles that might make us giggle and or prove a point of absurdity. Ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Socialism, you line up for bread. Capitalism, bread lines up for you. That actually is probably, that should be taught in every school right now. Every school. In socialism, you line up for bread. In capitalism, the bread lines up for you. Duly noted. I like that one. Round and around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Big font here. I can read that without the readers. 25% of liberals are on medication for mental illness. That's scary. It means 75% of running around untreated. That's true. Only 25% of liberals are on medication for mental illness. That means 75% of those libs are untreated. Be careful. Be very, very careful. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. My wrinkles are all from laughter. Except those lines between my eyebrows, they're my WTF lines. And those things are deep. That's what you call them. That's your WTF line. I remember the first time I noticed a little line there. I was horrified. That was the first one. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Liberals looking for ways to end an argument they're losing. They're going through the files here. You can see it. This is true. Racist, fascist, sexist, Nazi, colonist, hate speech, white supremacist, misogyny, homophobe. Yeah, there. What file are we going to pull out here today? Yeah, we're going to pull them all out. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Nigerian president promises to end genocide if Trump sends upfront fee of $5,000 in Amazon gift cards. Sorry. It's a really, I've got to get some experts on to talk about what's happening, the persecution and the genocide of Christians in Nigeria. It's a very serious topic, but that is a funny headline. And yeah, the Nigerian president. You ought to call the Nigerian prince. He may have more influence there than the president. I'm just saying. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. There it is. All China. Go to the ends of the earth looking, and China's the last stop, and China has said, no memes for you. But China does say it's election day. So everybody go vote and cast your ballot for good, and don't vote for evil. That's all I can tell you. If you want to know how to vote, just ask me. I'll be glad to tell you. I don't even live where you live, but vote. It's very important to vote, even in this off-year election. Don't just vote for the big stuff. Find out who's your school board candidate. Vote for them, and it's easy to do research now with the AI. You can do it. From the law firm of Carno, Gravilius, and Lakey, I am Jimmy Lakey, junior partner there, because Carno and Gravilius are the big dogs there. But you're welcome for everybody tuning in today. Don't forget our charity work, riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. I appreciate all of you being a part of the program today. We got to wrap it up, but until we meet again tomorrow, I mean this, my friends. Everybody send us an email. Let us know what you're thinking out there. info@jimmylakey.com. Charity organization, riverspromise.org. I will be in Rwanda in like less than 20 days, I think. And anything you start to give, I will be able to personally deliver it. Remember, $10 is buys a kid a school uniform. $25, we got to buy some shoes when we're there, our annual shoe drive. We buy right there about $25. $30 feeds a kid, two meals a day for an entire month. $65 is an entire sponsorship of a kid, pretty holistic. It's their insurance, it's their admission to school, it's everything, uniforms. It really takes care of a child. And listen, whatever you can do, if you want to give towards our building fund, I mentioned this, we finally kind of going more public. We kind of kept it on the DL, working some things behind the scenes to get it all ready, but we've got $350,000 of matching funds on the table for construction of the rest of our campus at Legacy Christian Academy. We're hoping to break the ground on the final phase of that construction here real soon. Riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. Until we meet again tomorrow, I am Jimmy Lakey. Producer Chad is over there. And until we meet you again tomorrow, may God bless you. May God bless America. Jimmy Lakey, peace. I'm out of here.